Hey everyone, some of you might be confused about how to begin an anti-inflammatory lifestyle with regards to activity. I always will include that in the history taking, the questions and answers exchange when we first meet. But if I can better assess where you are, then I can better give you a prescription. Not a prescription for medicine, but a prescription for nutrition, a prescription for mindful activity, and a prescription for exercise. That's always been a challenge, is fighting that idea that you just have to get a pair of sneakers on and run. So the activities that I try to prescribe basically boil down to two types. It's either endurance or resistance. Endurance training is something that you see all the time. Running, going to a running club, getting a running coach. Then there's also getting a bike and cycling, or getting to a pool and swimming. Regarding the entry-level status of these three endurance-type exercises, you don't really need coaching for it to start out. If you're going to be more advanced, you want to work on speed, you want to work on hills, you want to work on hiking to big summits, you want to work on swimming in lakes or oceans, you want to work on riding a century, you do have to get coaches, or at least have to be coached on nuances about how to not get injured. The bottom line is that we introduce an activity and make it a sustainable activity. It might start out as what I usually suggest, which is doing something for 3 months, embracing that, reaching that summit at the end of 3 months, and recalibrating after that for another summit. I think that the daisy chain of short goals that are easy to attain are a little bit more reassuring to most folks and not as threatening as saying, I gotta do 26.2 miles in 3 months. That's what the beauty of endurance training is you can easily start it without much coaching or much investment. The question is, if you have a treadmill, if you do 10,000 steps, if you already have a bike, why aren't you using it or doing that stuff now? That's the problem with endurance training. You're usually alone. And if you are alone, that's kind of a good practice or a way into mindfulness, but it's boring. So sustainability is tough. Unless your next daisy chain or summit is to join a group. And then you have the strength and the enthusiasm of the group to keep you going to the next summit. The American Heart Association used to suggest that some kind of endurance sport, 3 to 5 days a week, would help you beat the odds on a heart attack. But now the advice on the American Heart Association is to get into some form of moderate or intense activity. Moderate or intense running, biking, and swimming sometimes needs a little bit of coaching to get into. I love resistance training. That's machines, free weights, body weight exercises. I love it because I used to be a bodybuilder. That was when I turned 18, and it's very close to my heart, so it makes me very happy when I feel that muscle pump. So there is something that's great about resistance training. Number one, it gives you a sense of proper posture. It makes you walk around proud. In yoga, we do those yoga poses to express ourselves and express our energy in a proper way. A lot of times we'll walk around like we're on our keyboards all the time, and it's been shown in studies that when you change your posture, when you smile, when you face the world with vigor and energy, depression can be decreased. Your mood can be improved. As far as I'm concerned, resistance training gives a little bit of an edge over endurance training in that regard. You are using muscle to a greater degree than your usual endurance training. Endurance training is good, no question. But with endurance training, you really learn to conserve energy and maximize on your form. And you're sometimes not utilizing all muscles. With resistance training, you are targeting certain muscles to do excessive amounts of work. As I've mentioned in previous videos, usually that delayed onset muscle soreness hits at about 24 hours and decreases in about 48 hours. When you're well versed with the type of exercises you're supposed to be doing and how they affect you, you can probably be on your own and go through your own circuit. But the inherent problem with resistance training is you really need some guidance as far as how to use machines, what to do properly with the techniques of CrossFit, how to use free weights, or how to do body weight exercises properly without getting hurt. The chances are greater with resistance training to have severe injury. The chances are greater with endurance training to have overuse injury, aches and pains that develop over time. So that's the trade-off between the two. I think you should probably do both. Perhaps the goal is to combine the benefits of resistance exercise in its posture awareness, in its muscle growth, in its positive feedback, there is a sense of confidence that exudes from people when they leave the gym or leave the exercise area. No question, with endurance training you're definitely on a high, but I think there's a difference between the two. That's why you take the best of both resistance and endurance and you combine it and find your way, or at least how best those two areas of exercise can serve you. So the most important keys are, number one, you have to have some sense of understanding of the activity you're going to be going into if you want to avoid an injury. Number two, you have to set proper goals so that attaining that short-term achievement is higher success rate. Number three, you have to address what your deficiencies are. If you have a truncal deficiency, if you have problems with weak ankles, if you have problems with an old rotator cuff or an old pinched nerve in the back, you really have to address that with your doctor before you get into an activity. You don't want to learn a new technique around an injured joint. It will only reinforce improper technique, which leads to an injury down the line somewhere. And finally, the last point is, you really have to enjoy this. I like my patients to change the language of what they think about exercise, change the language about what they feel about sweating, change the language about the pain that you're going to interpret. My fibromyalgia patients will dread having any muscle spasm flare up. Those patients, they might start out at a low intensity activity, but again, success after about 3 months and then launch into the next. But the objective is to diligently continue on till the next task and the next summit. In the end, some form of fun, sustainable activity done 30 minutes, 5 days a week at least, at moderate intensity, will support your whole food, mostly plant-based practice, your mindfulness activity, and a proper sleep pattern. This is how we get to an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Check out my other videos from the past to get even more information. If you found this information empowering, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to me for weekly words of wisdom.